We light this candle to remind us of the light of God's love and of God's presence with and within us in every moment of our lives. So together we say,
welcome to our place, welcome to worship, welcome in the name of our living God.
People without faith in God can be like thistledown in the wind.
Our help is in the name of the living God, who has made heaven and earth.
Come then, let us bow down, let us quieten ourselves in the presence of God, our Creator and Redeemer. For God, our God, is the truest friend.
And we are a people who feed God divine love, the family under the care of holy hands.
Lord, we come to you today asking you to help us to make sound decisions and to be better judges in every situation we face. Open our spiritual eyes so that we can see who and what we are dealing with. Through Jesus, in whom we believe and pray. Our first hymn is from With One Voice, earlier, of course, an Irish tune to Irish words. Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart, naught be all else to me save that thou art. Thou art my best thought, by day or by night, waking or sleeping, thy presence my light. shut, and shut doors no one can open. We want to trust you when the time comes for making any decisions, or for that matter, any decisions. We're in just such a position again, that we know we're not alone. We will trust you for generous wisdom, straight paths, and peaceful hearts, all for your glory. We praise you for being the decision-making God. We make many decisions, but free us from the paralysis of analysis. We want to make the right decision more than we want to be righteous people. We want to be known as wise people more than we want to know you. Free us from making decisions primarily for our own comfort or another's approval. Free us to know that good choices don't always lead to the easiest outcomes. We will plan, but we trust you to order our steps. We will seek counsel and count on the advice of trusted friends and mentors. We will search the scriptures, but finally, it is your wisdom that we seek. Whether it is wisdom about buying or selling, vocation or vacation, this place or that place, this or that person. We know that in everything, to do your will is our prayer. Through this we become more like Jesus as we trust you for the opening and closing of the doors that are in front of us. We bring to you now all that comprises our lives. Small diamonds of success and the clay of failure. Proud memories and shame, wisdom and folly. Hopes that shone like gold, and the mud of pessimism. We confess all that we are and put ourselves unconditionally in your hands. Lord, have mercy.
Lord, have mercy.
Christ, have mercy.
Christ, have mercy.
Lord, have mercy.
Lord, have mercy.
Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. Save us from the time of trial and deliver us from evil. For the kingdom, power, and glory are yours, now and forever. Amen. Somewhat sombre hymn of Colin Gibson's we're going to sing now, but appropriate to the theme of the service. Is there no other way but this when children learn to curse and kill? When isolation numbs the brain and torture breaks another's will? Is there no other way but this from tyrant fear ourselves to save? But eye for eye and death for death, till earth becomes our common grave?
When eyes of nation
New Testament from the book of Joshua, beginning chapter 24, beginning at verse 14. Now therefore revere the Lord and serve him in sincerity and in faithfulness. Put away the gods that your ancestors served beyond the river and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. Now if you are unwilling to serve the Lord, choose this day whom you will serve, whether the gods your ancestors served in the region beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you were living. But for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. Then the people answered, Far be it from us that we should forsake the Lord to serve other gods. For it is the Lord our God who brought us and our ancestors up from the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery, and did those great signs in our sight. He protected us all along the way that we went, and among all the people through whom we passed. And the Lord drove out before us all the peoples, the Amorites who lived in the land. Therefore we also will serve the Lord, for he is our God. And our second reading, the epistle from the letter of Paul to the Philippians, chapter 1, verse 9. And this is my prayer. And this is my prayer, that your love may overflow more and more with knowledge and full insight, to help you determine what is best, so that in the day of Christ you may be pure and blameless, having produced the harvest of righteousness that comes through Jesus Christ for the glory and praise of God. Third reading is the Gospel from Matthew, chapter 16, beginning at the first verse. The Pharisees and Sadducees came, and to test Jesus they asked him to show them a sign from heaven. He answered them, When it is evening, you say it will be fair weather, for the sky is red. And in the morning it will be stormy today, for the sky is red and threatening. You know how to interpret the appearance of the sky, but you cannot interpret the signs of the times. An evil and adulterous generation asks for a sign, but no sign will be given to it except the sign of Jonah. Then he left them and went away. Here is the readings.
Know how to read the face of the sky, but you can't read the signs of the times. In the name of God. Amen. His word spoken in the temple in Jerusalem, that really central place of teaching for the faithful Israelites. So when visitors came from Galilee, for example, they expected to receive wisdom, to be taught. And here we have the teachers themselves, the leaders of the faith, trying to capture Jesus out in a clever question. And he sees through it all and rebukes them for their hypocrisy. Jesus, maybe even then, had already become known for the wisdom, the insightfulness of his teaching, couched in common language, illustrated by everyday happenings, we call them parables, shared with others as he wandered around his Galilean homeland in particular. I think we do Jesus an injustice if we think of him too much as a formal teacher, as it were, There weren't textbooks in those days, nothing like that. There were rolls of scripture, but not textbooks. So Jesus tended naturally to take his subject matter, particularly his illustrations, from his immediate world, which was everybody else's immediate world of experience. Like when he refers to the matter of weather prediction. How many of us grew up reciting little rhymes? How many of us grew up reciting little rhymes about the sky at night or whatever? Did we expect in the morning for it to become true? Every age, I imagine, every society, every civilization has had its formula for what's going to happen the next day, based on the previous day. We're that sort of creature of habit. And so we like to impose on nature our habits. We need order. And it's kept us going for thousands and thousands of years. And it's that sort of everyday wisdom that covered the talking together, and it was just that, just talking together, chatting, that Jesus and his friends, in groups of 3 or 4 or more, engaged in as they wandered along the roads around Galilee. They walked past a home or a farmlet. They walked through this village or that township, that market town. They knew the people. It's important to know that. It was a community and people were known by name. They knew them personally. And as they moved around, they would catch up with the latest news, the latest gossip, let's say. And they talked it over as they went along. Jesus turned that sort of talk, that sort of gossip, those occurrences, daily occurrences, into subject matter relating to the will of a loving, parental God. Where do we get our news? Well, firstly, I suppose you would say the media, newspaper and TV. If I use the word controlled news, even biased news, I think it's just a matter of fact. And worse still, is news told to deliberately affect our judgment. Distorted news too often. And how can we know? How can we know when our news is true? Increasingly, as my own family remind me, there is something called a cell phone, and that's where they get their news from. That slightly younger, many of you are like that, get their news in ways much more informal, much more chatty, much more like Jesus' time, straight enough, isn't it? The sharing of news by cell phone. All very well, but you have to answer a cell phone. It invades your privacy. So this morning I've chosen this story of Jesus answering the Pharisees as a door into something that's currently pushing its way right into the centre of our attention. And of course I'm speaking of the general election in a matter of weeks. And I'm wondering about the ways in which we are being influenced by those who want our vote. And some of who seem not to care about how they influence our thinking. Naturally, they want to influence our thinking as far as they're able. We can't simply complain because they get in our faces with their campaigning. They've got every right to do this. One thing that I find, however, rather more disquieting, even insidious, is the way the so-called pundits, the experts, the analysts, assume that they are in a better position to know what's what than we are. Something that's even more irritating for this veteran of, I think I counted 25 general elections in which I've voted, is the increasing use of polls in the run-up. At least every week, sometimes twice a week these days. Is it all that helpful to our own decision-making to know in advance what other people are thinking about? Does what they want to do with their vote something that we should take cognizance of? The pollsters often obviously think so. It would be so easy to say that a better alternative for us individuals is to be so sufficiently informed ourselves that we can make our own minds up for ourselves. But then I rather suspect that what will drive our final thoughts on the matter will be something as unconnected as from the real issues as the red sky at night. Do we need, therefore, a little bit like Jesus, to get back onto the road to reality? Like those disciples 2,000 years ago, making contact with real people, real situations, and doing what was humanly appropriate and possible. So we want, don't we, candidates who know their constituents, know them really, and who know what needs to be done. And we want them to have the character to stand up for their principles and change their world, which is our world. They may need an electoral office, of course, in their home setting, but it's when they go outside the door that they will meet real people and discover for themselves what might be done. Jesus knew so well the people he believed he had been sent to save were just ordinary folk like himself. He was one of them. I don't intend to go on about our own election, though it's this week taken a little bit of a turn in Dunedin, where personal character has entered into a party decision. And Mike, I hope you'll excuse me if I just hint there was something called a presidential election in the offing in the United States. And we know a lot about it in New Zealand in one sense because of the character of one major player. I'll name him Donald Trump because he's been called all sorts of things, but one thing he was not called was a fox. I haven't heard that word used, and Jesus used it. He referred to King Herod as that fox. Wow. He was caught up in politics as much as we are. Every day, the world of the Israelites. Pulpit isn't really the best place to delineate the character of an ideal candidate, but I really have been wondering again, I suppose, what can be said about what is the essence of good government. And so I return, as I often do these days, to a simple verse or two from the book of Micah, the prophet, who lived at least 500, probably nearer 600 years before Jesus. And he said some words which for me summarise the gospel of Jesus as nearly perfectly as can be. What does the Lord, Yahweh, require of you? Nothing but to do justice, to love mercy, and humbly to go along with your God. Universal words, and they were in troubled times to today's troubled times. And when I think of justice, I think of a particular image. I only have to describe it briefly because you'll know it. It's on public buildings. It's on our courts of law at the bottom of Stewart Street. It is of justice as a woman, blindfold, carrying the scales. You've all seen it. And by the way, for some reason, the Dunedin Law Court's woman is not blindfold. She is overseas, but not in Dunedin. What does it say about us, I wonder? Think about it. What does the image mean? Does it really, for example, symbolise what goes on in the court of law? Is justice blind? Does justice have to be correct to the milligram? Well, you would think so sometimes. Both our government and courts seem obsessed with the need to be exactly exact when treating pay claims, for example. The scales must be perfectly level. Is parity of that sort the only way to reach a just settlement? You heard, I think it was last week or the week before, some of the stories about Jesus and justice. The mother, not a Jewish mother, seeking his help in the healing of her child, and first being told by him, well, you don't belong to my tribe, you're not part of my people, I have nothing to do with you. That was simply blind justice, not even blindfold justice. And Jesus knew it and was mercifully free in his own mind to follow the will of God rather than the dictates of reason, of racism, or Moses. He kept his eyes open. He commended a judge on another occasion who apparently had enough of a woman complainant seeking his help so persistently, so he just gave in, saying trouble, he said, and justice was done. What's the difference between a legal system that has absolutely every possible human predicament covered by a set of rules, and justice based on the will of God? Not justice in the sense of adhering to a book of law, that sort of exactness of interpretation that has given rise, with respect, to a whole class of practitioners and functionaries. Micah is rather speaking of justice as upholding what is right according to the traditions of God's will, both in respect to legal proceedings and to the conduct of life, both of them. Is the former the only way ahead? Justice? Or is that other word used by Micah to be the final arbiter? In a clash of wills, in a call for recognition of personal need, is not compassion to be the final word? I believe it is. Because I think it interprets that too familiar word, that too much used word, love. Certainly not erotic love, or sentimental love, or thoughtless, instinctive love. There's something more in that word love, and I think we find it in using that word compassion. It goes hand in hand with mercy. It describes a sense of mutuality with the other person that understands need, sees the needy, and responds by identifying with both. Not carefully measuring, but spontaneous compassion. And I ask now whether it's not too much to hope that this attribute will be found among candidates for the November election. I'm not going to look at you, but I imagine some might be smiling ruefully or even cynically. But it is surely something we want to believe is possible with women and men just like ourselves who are standing for office. Micah goes on to say then that God asks of us that we will walk humbly with God. Our walk is our way of life, our very being. Marked, as one commentator has put it, by, quote, considered attention. Good words. Considered attention to the other person. Our world presses in on us, and it's an increasingly threatening world. And it's nature itself that is responding to our abuse of it, for example. And it's found in those everywhere who seek power and will go to any means to achieve it and hold on to it. We have in Jesus of Nazareth the one who, as we say, walked God's walk and talked God's talk. He is there waiting for us, and the us includes candidates to join him. Amen. And as a statement of faith, let's read together the words of Psalm 121. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot slip. You who watches over you, he will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and going, both now and forevermore. And we'll sing again, this time from Faith Forever Singing. I'll just read the verse. For everyone born, a place at the table, for everyone born, clean water and bread, a shelter, a space, a safe place for growing, for everyone born, a star overhead. Merciful Lord, you have provided each of us with many similar yet unique gifts. Thank you for the talents and abilities of people within this congregation. We're a blessed people. Now we unite as one body to share in this worshipful act of offering. Giving is such a joy-filled experience. Thank you, Lord, for this opportunity to support the transformation of people's spiritual lives through the ministry and mission of this body of Christ. Amen. We pray to God for our sisters and brothers of every race, our neighbours in this land of Aotearoa, and the myriads who may seem just statistics in vast populations of Asia and America, Africa and Europe. We cannot love every person that you do, and we seek your blessing on them. Those countless victims of natural disaster, flood and cyclones and earthquakes and fire, without home or hope.
Those caught up in rifts of corporate evil, and those caught in personal temptations, to now take some control of their own nations.
Those on the brink of belief and trust, but who feel that their lives are too insignificant for you to be concerned for them, that they may find renewed faith.
Children who are enduring war, hunger, violence, or God forsaken, orphaned, homeless, or disease, that they may see one day in the hands of the righteousness.
The intellectually and physically handicapped, the frail we find each day a major struggle, the lonely sad or bitter folk, that they may discover peace and purpose in their daily lives.
Prime Ministers and Presidents, Parliaments and local councils, the Human Spirit Council and ministers,
That they will find ways to achieve what is best without fear or favour. Leaders in commerce and industry, union secretaries and shop stewards, that they may look beyond short-term victories to the long-term well-being of all.
those managing welfare outreach,
Social justice ministries, and for the churches that they may be more ready to serve and be served. Help us where it is appropriate to our skills and opportunities to implement some of these prayers with sensitivity, integrity, and quiet determination. A generation ago, this was a modern hymn. It's not. It's become part of the real heart of, I think, the Christian faith, certainly the Protestant Christian faith. All who love and serve your city, all who bear its daily stress, all who cry for peace and justice, all who curse, and all who bless. And such the light of this one small candle, and its flame was lost forever.
as we believe in the one who is the light of the world,
Cannot be extinguished. Thanks be to God. I appeal to you, sisters and brothers, by the mercies of God, to present yourselves a living sacrifice, set aside and acceptable to God. The life of Christ is my life. Don't conform to the thinking of this age, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that you may test and prove the will of God. The love of Christ inspires us. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship
cold hands there, Bruce.
Yeah, it's just good stuff.
Any idea what causes it to go?
It's the microphone. Donald wanted Donald's.
Oh, he had one of those. He's getting interference.
So, that microphone is very sensitive to
Finish the stream, please. No, otherwise you'll be recorded on.
I'm sorry.